So, today we're going to be talking a little bit about how you can augment your tech stack with automation and AI. And we're going to do that with some really practical, I think, use cases and demos because we're trying to tackle that question, which is AI powered automation a magic bullet, or is it just return to the basics, the things we've always been trying to get done? The chaplain says the reality is a little bit of both. So in today's event, TIG is going to help us discover some solutions that can streamline your workflows, boost efficiency, and drive some meaningful growth. Captain Timothy TIG Heaslet is really in service here of nonprofits. And he's been doing that with a number of different projects, mostly under the umbrella of what's it called? Brain, something quietly working. But he's actually got a really interesting origin story about what brought him here to the table. So I think he'll share that as well as part of the introduction.
So, guys, I am really excited about helping. I've been I've been presenting for a long time, and one of the things that I've realized specifically with nonprofits is that there's no normal, and a lot of times the best way to help is to start by asking questions. My background, I am older than I look, and I've been in this space for a little over 30 years. I tell the people that I work with that I have made more mistakes than probably anybody. I'm also the luckiest person, anybody you'll know. My mission in life is to love people like they've never been loved before. And our nonprofit's mission is to serve youth 30 and younger to really empower them for generational change. That started with our first nonprofit, which was America's Children of Fallen Heroes. So we have the honor of serving all the kids who lost a parent in the military and fallen first responders. That became an international effort as we met families all around the world. And our newest effort is a technical art school that we're building at missingpixel.org. It's basically helping underserved youth get the training that they need, along with mentorship and personal development support to create generational change in their life. But now to what is most important, which is how to help you guys. I would love to hear in the chat, what is your current experience with automation or with AI for your nonprofits? And as you're putting that in, one of the things that we're hearing a lot from companies in general is this expectation that AI is going to solve a lot of their problems, which it can, but a lot of people are disappointed that you have to start right at the very beginning, which is looking at your processes. You have to go back to the start of really defining your business and defining what your organization does and getting into the details of the steps, just like you would for process development. I want to read some of these and just get an idea of where you guys are at. Zapier. Okay. That is perfect because that's the no code, low code beginning for process development. I've been trying to use AI. Your referral forms. Perfect. Okay, it's a cool. So to read faxed referral forms and put them into your database, are you basically taking the data and putting it, vectorizing it into a database? Or I'd love to know what you're doing with that. Okay. Okay, so using it to prepare proposals and work plans. So that sounds like, Laura, that sounds like more of using a subscription, whether that's with Claude, with Anthropic, or with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, using their service, the $20 a month service, and using it to putting your information in and getting back a proposal and plan correct me if I'm wrong. Let's see. It was, ooh, Alan. Okay. Cautionary voice with respect to AI. Yes, I highly respect the cautionary voice. I tell people that I'm going to enjoy this journey until the AI destroys us all. I highly respect your cautionary voice. It does definitely need guardrails. Okay. Okay. Thank you that was perfect. Laura, explain what you mean. I, okay. Got it.
Do I have you?
Your,
Please. Yeah. No, what I did is that I use it to teach it about me using my stuff and then say, okay, this is, say, for instance, my resume, or this is my profile. This is my business plan. Now, I need this and this. Can you create it using this lens?
got it.
Yeah. So
Got
more
it.
like teaching it and then pushing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this gets to between what you're talking about and what I'm reading, for instance, from Nate, the difference between procedural automation and agentic automation. Procedural or process automation is what we've been building for 30 years, which is what steps in a procedure can be automated. What techniques can we use? What can we program to take that off of our shoulders? The agentic workflows, which are relatively new within the past 3 years, are the flows that you're talking about, where they are taking that information and they're using the LLMs to do something with that and to put it into a different format. The agentic workflows, one of the things that it's really important to get as much success as possible is to chunk those down into small pieces at a time. What we have found is that by creating workflows that what do you say, agent? Okay, that's a good question, Laura. An agentic workflow is a process that includes in it an AI agent. An agent will be whether it's Chat GPT or whether it is Claude or whether it's a different large language model. So what you're doing when you're interfacing with ChatGPT is you're creating basically an agentic workflow by doing that. What we have found is that if in an enterprise level, the most effective workflows are things that are just rock solid, which you're going to get. And agentic workflows just aren't there yet. So we try and keep things as procedural as possible. And yes, you're going to get promotional emails. You're going to see on YouTube that I created this AI assistant and it will do everything for me. It can go ahead and send emails and it can answer my phone calls and it can be a bot on my website. And it is getting better, but it still has a 5% to 10% error rate. And that brings us to the next concept. There are two different categories within the agentic workflow. There is academic, and then there's that actual business use case. What you're going to see mostly on YouTube and in your email box are what I would consider academic proposals. One of the things that Nate mentioned is trying to get a certain output from the input. It's use some type of JSON code in some type of format that is consistent every single time. That's a challenge, and it's getting better. There are some new workflows that Anthropic has come out with recently. Actually, they started developing this 2 years ago, but it's just gaining momentum. And it's to answer that exact question of how do we get consistent output in the format in when it comes to code, it's called a schema. So you're looking for this specific output that I'm getting so that I can consistently get the result that I need. When you're trying to replace work that you're doing, you can't usually live with a 5 to 10% error rate because the problems that can cause can cascade and can cause so much more than a 5 or 10% problem. The biggest areas of success that we have found with the agentic type workflows are very simple. For instance, when you're dealing with someone on the phone and and you need to capture an address to send them something, to be able to in your CRM to be able to click on a button and automatically the system will look up and find their mobile line and it will text them asking them for the information, asking them for their mailing address, or asking them for input you need that is hard to get over them, and get that directly into your CRM. That is effective. And that is a really good solution. Something else where when somebody's at light and it's after hours and you can't help them, but they can interface with a bot that has been given all of the information that you have available to serve them. And they realize that this is that they can get when you're not available. That's actually really helpful. And especially when you build into the process, for instance, within your agentic workflow, you have this human in the loop capability where you've trained the AI agent when you don't have an answer that you're confident is from the training data that I've given you. Let the user know that this is something that I don't have a confident answer for you, and I'm going to ask the person who knows, and sends you a text, and you can text back the actual answer, which then it will update its knowledge with that answer and give that answer to the user. That is something that's really helpful and really useful. Okay, let me check, make sure that Nate, you are. Oh, I get it. Yeah, it is correct that the more examples that you can give that can be really helpful. It's also, it is, there are losses that if you make it too big, you can start having cascading failures. So it's just really important to know what model you're working with because each model has a chunking size or a memory size that it can handle. And that's one of the reasons we're seeing so much excitement over Google's new model because its ability to handle large amounts of information is really amazing. So you could take an entire 3-hour video and have it absorb that entire bit content in one go, and then be able to contextualize it rather than doing it in chunks. Okay, what are some other questions? Nate, did you get your question answered? Okay, perfect. Awesome. Great. Anybody else have any specific challenges that they're facing? No, that's perfect, Nate. That's great. I'm definitely gonna capture the notes so that I can look at the article too. Yeah. One of the tools that I would highly recommend you guys check out is N8N. The letter N, the number 8, and the letter N. It is a tool that is so incredibly powerful. It's very similar to make.com or active pieces, but it's built directly on LangChain, which if you have a programming background, you recognize like how powerful it is for building these agentic workflows. And one of the things that I would recommend is if you are looking at hiring somebody to build some type of workflow for you, don't be afraid to ask, what type of backbone do you build on? Are you coding this? Are you using a low code platform or a no code platform? There's no real wrong answer, but you need to know what is being built, how it's being built, so that you can then make some decisions about how you're going to grow with that tool and whether it's being built for you as a SaaS solution so that you're not necessarily getting access to the actual tool, but the solution, or whether you're going to create the subscription to whatever service they're using and they'll build it for you. Okay, Laura, we're considering an AI chatbot solution to answer questions from various places, but not sure how to go about it to ensure answers are not incorrect. Okay, that's a fantastic application. So the biggest part of your challenge is going to make sure that you have a robust solution for your knowledge base. Do we use specific what? You don't, you know what? You don't have to use anything more complicated than a Word document. You can build solutions that vectorize that data that to make it just as easy to absorb than anything else. Yeah. So if that brings up a really good point about privacy. So if privacy and keeping information secure and safe at an enterprise level is really important for you, then you might, as an example with N, you can self-host it so that you are in control of the entire process. So there's the component of, I talk with my hands and my wife constantly just says, explain it better, don't use your hands. So you have one component, which is how you're building the workflow. That component is either Zapier or it's N8N or it's make.com. Then you have your database that becomes its knowledge base. And that knowledge base is going to be a different component than what you're used to working with because it needs to be vectorized. So the current format for a knowledge base is it's whatever it is in, it's going to need to be vectorized. And now that process is who's building an agentic workflow will know how to do that, but that's going to be a a vector database like Pinecone. Let's see here. Yeah, law. That's law is going to be a real challenge. Same thing, anything with HIPAA compliance. We have to build completely siloed servers within Azure, within a separate siloed platform for it. And that's why a platform that you're able to build within your own self-hosted like N8N. Also, Active Pieces is another. Active Pieces is a solution that's like Zapier, but it's open source, so you can self-host it. Okay. Another term that you're going to hear, Laura, is multimodal, which a multimodal LLM means that it can read text and it can see pictures and it can understand video sources. They tend to be a little bit slower because they can do more, but is most of what you have, whether it's PDF, if it's a web resource, or whether it's a video that has been transcribed, you're going to take all of that and turn it into a vector source so that it can be pulled quickly from the large language model. Yeah, we have a few different legal resource centers that we're helping right now, and it is an extra level of challenging. Just like a lot of the youth center organizations, the privacy has to be paramount, obviously. And also, yeah, and that's where we talk about the bumpers alongside the bowling alley. For building robust and safe interactions for our users, we have to make sure that what's coming the agent is within what we define as safe and acceptable. And that is going to be one of the biggest challenges that we have going forward with agentic workflows. One of the best solutions that we've seen so far is from Microsoft. If you build your systems on Azure, they have a layer that you can add that helps with those guardrails for interaction for highly sensitive and important entities work. Okay, what other questions we have? What service is that? Fauna is really good. They're good people. They've been really good at being able to take video format and not only transcribe it, but then also to cut it into components for you and make it really usable. Descript has been great. Descript they've got some changes that they've got to make to their AI, but it's a great platform and great people. Also, that's one of the things Claude is really good at, is putting a video up and it'll spit out your transcript in a lot of different formats. Otter AI is good. Yeah. And I've been impressed with Zoom too. But one of the nice things that I've really liked about Alfana is being able to make sure that you can change the users if you need to change the user. Yeah. I've got one of the best, if you're doing anything with spoken word, written word code, it's hard to beat Claude right now. Yeah. And here's the exciting part about all this is this is the worst that it's ever going to be. Okay. Vector. So this is a highly complex topic. I used to be really good at this. About 10 years ago, I died and I was clinically dead for 10 minutes and I lost a lot. There's some minor brain damage and some physical damage. And so I've been trying to relearn vectorization, but it's highly complex math where it takes the components that are related to each other and turns them into numbers. And that's what vectorization is. It basically takes the data and puts it into chunks. So if you hear chunking, that's what it's talking about. And then it takes that chunk and turns it into a set of numbers. And what the reason that it does that is so that when someone asks the agent a question, it can go to that vector, that area where that information is. And if it's vectorized correctly, everything that's related to that is close by. So it can pull a set of chunks of that information and then process its reasoning ability using those chunks of data. That's how things are done now. The future of chunking is changing very quickly because these language models are becoming so much smarter and they're able to handle so much more information that chunking is becoming less and less important. The reason why we had to break these, let's say that you had a knowledge base that was 2000 long and you break those into sections of 1100 words and you have an overlap so that each chunk is also overlapped by 20%. That getting less and less important to do that because of the larger models. The newer models now are able to contextualize so much info once. So vectorizing a knowledge base is an important concept to know right now. And it's some people are predicting that within a year, though, it's not going to be needed. So it's this landscape is changing so fast that it's just the challenge is keeping up. So the tools for vectorizing are done within whatever system you're using building your agentic workflow. So for instance, N8N, when you build your vector database, which is with a service, there's Supabase is one of the most common ones because it's a lot simpler to get involved with. Supabase. Yeah, it's supabase.com. Okay. They're also a little more affordable. So there's just so you can get an understanding what it is. And then there's also Pinecone. So Pinecone and Supabase are the most common vector databases. It's getting a little more technical, but it's less important which one you go with than just getting started so you can learn it. If it's something that you want to do yourself. And the nice thing is that, for instance, if you go with Supabase, there are so many tutorials that can teach you how to, to get started with, oh, thank you, Eli. Yeah, the link didn't come through there. To be able to set up a first go at a vector database so you can start your process of learning how you want to build your agentic knowledge base. So Laura, how big is your knowledge base right now?
That's a good question. Because it's a web app, let's see, there are like probably what we call a collection, which is a whole bunch of different PDFs with lots of different information on various crops and stuff. So there could be like 200 separate PDFs. And then there's probably about 40 shortish videos.
Okay. And also with something with a focus so specific as crops or as with farming,
Yeah.
I bet there are some language models that are specifically built with that in mind that would be highly tuned for the type of needs that you might have. I know because we do surveying and mapping and aerial
Yeah.
work. So I know that there are maps that are specifically, or that there are models that are specifically designed for understanding the heat ranges and the different spectral data ranges that we pull in. So it's something to look at also. Because
Well,
yeah, with anything like Claude or with OpenAI's models, you're using a completely generalized model
exactly.
that,
Not work.
yeah, it has to work with everybody.
Yeah.
But if you take a look at something like Open Router, we get it. There. Yep, openrouter.ai. This gives you a massive list of different LLMs that you can start playing with for seeing what gets the best results for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and so this is something where if you were to build a test sequence with a portion of your data in N8N, then you could test out the different results you get with the different models.
Yeah.
And if you're not finding something you like, you can also take an open model and actually create your own large language model that's an offshoot that's specifically trained on the data that you guys have and that you want to work with.
That's what we were thinking. Is that an expensive option though?
No, it's not.
Okay, cool.
Everything in this space is relatively inexpensive. It's a complete democratization of technology. And that's what's so exciting for nonprofits, Ali, because you're able to take this stuff that it's still like magic, able to bring it to the world of served populations that typically don't get this type of thing.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so cool. So
Yeah.
is it possible then, like, for instance, sorry, I don't mean to be taking up all the time.
Please, this is what it's all about.
Okay. I just wanted to sidebar that. Is that if, for instance, the UN has a website that provides information on starting regenerative agriculture practices for farmers that are doing standard farming now, can I then say, teach the large language model to, okay, find answers on this website and this website, or pull the information from those websites to say, okay, this is the kind of knowledge that we want to share based on, I don't know, 5 or 6 different sources.
For something like that, I don't think you would need to build your own language model. For something
No.
like that, you're basically just processing data. You're basically creating a massive knowledge base and teaching it. It doesn't need to be taught anything new unless there are specific outcomes you need to train it on that are so far out of the normal or so specific because you're not getting the quality, consistent responses that your community needs
Right.
from a consistent language model.
And so that's really the underlying reason why to create a specific large language model so that you don't have to worry about
Yeah.
those problems.
So you start with the most openly available solution possible.
Yeah.
It's just like solving any other problem. Keep it as simple as possible. See what breaks, see where the failure points are, and then solve for that failure point. And
Right.
then see where the next failure point is. most people try and create something that is so complex right from the start that it's impossible to tell where the problem's coming.
Gotcha. So for instance, like I could use our existing web app knowledge base and use that as the testing platform. And then knowledge is limited, but we know it's correct.
Yes. That's exactly where you want to start from. You want to start from known quality,
Okay.
and your first challenge is going to be learning how to really write quality prompting. And with prompting, there's three components. There's a system prompt, a user prompt, and then examples. It's like what Eli was saying, where you want to, and this is for an agentic workflow, obviously, when you're training your agent, or when you're not training, when you're building your agent, you give it its system instructions. This is who you are, and this is the voice that you speak in. And then you give it its user message of this is what you're going to be doing. And then you give examples of when you have something in a correct fashion, this is what it would look like.
That sounds really complicated.
It's finally just like anything in life, right? Like you have to be willing to suck at something long enough to be
Yeah.
good.
Or
And that's
hire a developer.
100%. Yeah. Or hire a developer.
Because that's like way out of my league. Okay, but that's good. That's good. And I have a pretty good developer. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Just always. Yeah. And Eli's bringing RAG is retrieval augmented generation. It's basically the knowledge base that you're creating for the long-term memory. Any agent, you've got the LLM that it's working with, it's short-term memory and it's long-term memory. RAG is typically its long-term memory. There's some new things that are coming out that might completely get rid of RAG in the next few months, but again, space is moving so fast that it's important to just pick a starting point and develop something that works for you, your community now, and then chip away at changes as they come and not worry about it.
Thanks. That's great advice. Thank you.
Of course. This is just websites came out, video, when digital videos first start coming out. There's no end to the shiny things that will come into your inbox, will come into your YouTube. There are shiny things everywhere. And so it's very important that we focus and we clarify what are the things that we actually want to do to serve our community. And we write that down and then detail out what is the procedure for doing it. And once we clarify what those steps are, then we can ask the question of, okay, how in that process, how do we automate steps? And then how do we use AI in certain tiny steps to better serve who we're working with? All right. Any last questions before Eli takes over?
Awesome. Thank you so much for giving us a real good sense of what do we need to think about as we start thinking about what are some of the ways we can automate our experiences. How can we actually take the data we already have and shape it in a way that we can create other ways for people to interface and use that data. So we may well come back again and do this in 3 to 6 more months because, as the chaplain has said, things are moving really quickly around here. But I'm really grateful for your time today, because this is really helpful to have someone go in and get a little bit deeper with us as opposed to just giving us the surface marketing stuff. And I'm grateful that you're opening the door to people's follow-up questions through sharing your email.
Always. Yeah. I love serving nonprofits, and any way I can help you guys do more with less. And that's literally why I'm still alive.